But welcome to the Child Welfare and Foster Care Committee. We will start, would ask for a motion to approve our minutes from 3-3 and 3-5. We have a motion from Representative Neighbors, second from Representative Riley. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have approved the minutes. We're going to switch the order, which is why she let me talk. We have three presentations today, but the one that involves two of my good friends, Joy Meadows Foster Care Community, started back at Baser-Linwood High School for me when I was a teacher there, down the hall from Mr. Oberndorfer and my principal, Jared Furman. And their commitment to kids was incredible. And that's when I first heard of the ideas for foster care programs that Justin's going to speak about. They are the state of the art in foster care in the United States, in my personal opinion. Now, we would talk about this in the hallways, and it works. And so I'm very proud. They're going to speak briefly, although my principal used to blab forever at teacher meetings. Just saying, sorry. But they also have an issue on taxation that I would like to bring out just briefly. So we're going to have Justin Oberndorfer, who is our CEO. Jared Furman is the director of our Linwood campus, former principal at Baser-Linwood. So welcome to Child Committee, sir.
Dress up as a cowboy as you were teaching U.S. history, and wearing the cowboy hat and the boots and the yeehaw and everything brings back to great days. Chairman Howerton, Vice Chair Johnson, and the ranking minority member Jared Ousley. My name is Justin Oberndorfer. I am the CEO of Joy Meadows, founded in 2017. We're coming before you because we were denied starting in 2018 on a tax exemption. And part of it is because I feel like there's not clarity on what we do. Our job as our organization, what we've done and what we've built over the years has been, we created an organization that provides resources, provides community support, and provides housing for foster families and foster children in our area. What we've continued to expand and grow upon has been absolutely miraculous. Over the years, we've got one campus with about 68 acres. We have a secondary campus starting in Wyandotte County as well with another 100 acres. On this property, we do therapy. We do equine therapy. We provide many services for foster children as well as the foster families and the biological children in those homes and adoptive families. This last year, we had over 7,000 interactions with children and families on our site. It's not a small thing that we accomplish, and it's also a giant benefit to that foster care community. We have every agency, we have partnerships with all of the agencies in the area, and they rely on us to kind of meet the needs of support that is necessary. We also provide, in our community support piece that we offer, we also train and equip churches on how to support foster families in the local areas in which they live. So a church would take upon this calling, this ministry. They would bring training to the foster families and then also to the laymen, to their congregants, and teach them how to basically support a family. What we've seen is not a small thing. We have the average of those who are entered into foster care, within the first 10 months, they quit. So a foster family will say, hey, I'll take the license. Our state raises about $3,000 for that family to get licensed. Then within 10 months, that family has already stepped out, basically take one placement, they quit. The families that are supported by our care communities, our church network, they continue to foster after 3 years. 93% after 3 years, they're still retained as foster families. That's not a small task. That's a big deal. We do use our church relationships to make that happen, and we use that whole group of people and that demographic to make it happen. This last year, we continue to see growth. Over 2,000 monthly family supports came to our Second Saturday events, where a big issue for foster families is they find themselves in isolation. Talk to social workers and people like that. They'll say, hey, they love to foster, or they're fostering, but they find themselves in isolation with the rest of the community going, oh, that's the foster family over there, and they're isolated. What we have done is we brought all the foster families into a monthly event where they come and they can gather. Over 2,000 people have been on site just to come and fellowship with one another, to trade war stories with one another, and to grow with one another. It's not a small thing. We continue to see therapy continue to expand. We have equine therapy that also happened. We've had many sessions, many therapists on site, and it continues to grow. Like I said earlier, we've had over 70 churches that are implementing our community support, our care communities that we do, as well as the volunteer hours that we provide. I can't tell you the number of churches, organizations, every business in our area comes out and serves. We had almost 8,000 volunteer hours just on our property, just on Jared's Linwood property. So my issue is, I know that what we do has been really beneficial to the community, especially the foster care community. I know we're making a difference in foster care, not only the retention of families, but helping children get to stability, healing, and joy faster in their life. I can give you 1,000 testimonies, but we don't have time for that. If you'd like to talk more about it, I'd love to share more with you individually. If you want to know more about Joy Meadows, there's a lot that we do, a lot of ways you can be invested within Joy Meadows. It's really a powerful thing. It's not small, and it continues to grow. Currently, I'm going to Wyandotte County next, and then we have plans for Sedgwick County as well, knowing that it's a huge need. So that's our heart. That's what we do. Our issue is, in 2018 when we started, and this is when Tim Johnson actually began to really fight for Joy Meadows, we applied for the state tax forbearance. It was denied. We applied again many years later in 2024, and it was denied again. What we found was interesting is when you begin to look at the broad categories that are allowed for who can be non-taxable, obviously churches and education. But then there's a lot of listed state organizations that are also granted this forbearance of taxes. And so when we start looking at, well, what do they do? Well, you have Lions Club with the purpose of volunteering and community involvement, which we do. Kids TLC in Johnson County, Young Matrons for the purpose of promoting volunteers and education support and education, yet we do, right? Community service for Shawnee, the purpose of providing food and clothing, which we do. Special Olympics in Kansas, I just like this one because it's in their thing. Community opportunities to experience joy, which we do. TLC for children and families, the same deal for children who are neglected, as well as meeting additional critical needs for children and juveniles and families, which we do. I can go on, but as I begin to look at the ones who are listed in the statute, I struggle to see why we wouldn't fit as well in those same kind of categories. Yes, we're not a school and we're not a church. We are an organization that serves the church, that serves the vulnerable children in our state, and it continues to expand and grow, not only saving the taxpayers' dollars, but also the agencies who are doing the hard work. We're their backbone. We're the support system. When they don't know what to do with the family, they call Joy Meadows and says, do you have a care community for them, or do you have a home where we can put them in? And so I'm not an agency, I'm not a CPA, but I'm a backbone support for the agencies that do the work. So that's what I come to bring to you. I think what we do is pretty amazing, and we're just asking for some more people to get, maybe to advocate for this tax forbearance, because it seems to be something that we would qualify for, and yet it's been denied twice. So that's what we can talk about.
Okay, thank you very much. Committee, are there questions? This is Representative Humphreys.
So what sort of tax is that? I didn't quite understand the
State sales tax.
the sales tax. So the sales tax exemption. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. And Sedgwick County, yes.
Absolutely. A lot of kids, 1,800 just in one county, so it's a big need.
So Representative Humphreys and I am from Sedgwick County, and Representative Burkamp and Sandy Pickert, Representative Riley. Well, you're close to Sedgwick County, so you got a lot of us on here. That's good news.
We're so excited.
We need options and
It's
support.
a lot of partnership with the churches that make it happen. So that's why we continue to build those relationships, because that's how it started.
Thank you so much for coming. I'd heard of you, but I thought it was a person for a while, Joy Meadows, and I was trying to figure out exactly what you did, and Representative Johnson kind of filled me in. I think that's absolutely wonderful. It never ceases to amaze me what's going on in our state. So thank you for being here, and we appreciate your testimony. Yeah. Okay, next, I want to recognize, I believe we have some students in the audience. If you're a student, would you stand up? I know, awkward. Oh, wow, we have a lot of you. So these are potentially future social workers, if I'm not correct. Okay, good. And I just wanted to thank you for being here today, especially in our committee. We need you. We need a workforce out there, so keep working hard. Thank you for being here. You can sit down. Yay. Good. That's a great crew. Okay. So next up, we will go with Radical Life. She's here. And Lindsay Smith, welcome to committee. And then Sheriff, and I did not get your name. I'm so sorry. What?
I'm sorry, Sheriff Jeff Cope from Lyon County.
Yeah, great.
I'm here to support Lindsay, so we work with her.
Okay, great. If you'll turn that mic on for me and then introduce yourself and tell us what you have for us today.
Am I good? I'm short, guys. I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Lindsay Smith, and I'm the Executive Director at Radical Life in Emporia, Kansas. I serve all of Lyon County and surrounding counties, working with families who have children in or at risk of going into the foster care system. So a little about me real quick. I am a teacher, so I got to do some teacher things. Sorry, my background is a special education teacher for elementary students, so I'm going to have you turn to your partner. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry, I'm nervous. So I worked in special education in Emporia, Kansas with kids who were removed from my classroom and put in foster care. I remember we would talk about which police officer we'd hope would come get them because it was easier on them when you're put in foster care if the police officer is fun and interactive with you. Those were the things that we saw. It was hard. My husband and I became foster parents. And as we were doing that and working with foster kids coming into our home, we saw that the reasons that they were coming into our home, we were told, was for neglect and abandonment. But it really was like they had lice and they had bed bugs or they had a filthy home and their parents needed more support. So we started working with their foster or with their bio parents, and it went pretty well. I mean, there were bumps, there were bad things that occurred, but when we sat down and talked about it, we thought, how can we help more kids? So we created this nonprofit, and we wanted to help multiple families at once, not just one family at a time. So we created Radical Life. Our mission is to work with families. It is to, first and foremost, resolve poverty. We found that's the number one cause for kids going into care. To do that, we were like, how do you resolve poverty? The U.S. government's been working on that since like the 50s, sinking billions of dollars into it, and it's not really working. How are we going to do anything, right? We can't. We did find a curriculum that we use. It's based off Dr. Ruby Payne's work, Bridges Out of Poverty and Getting Ahead in a Just Getting By World. We work with our families to address 11 resource areas. So we know that we are holistic humans, right? We're not one-dimensional. So we work on all sides of what we are. So it looks at your mental health. It looks at your emotional health, your finances, your spiritual health. We look at your social capital. What resources do you have access to that you feel will include you in the process? We look at your integrity and trust, your relationships and role models, and we talk about how to navigate the world, right? We work with families to build up their strengths, but also building those weaknesses that they have. They get to create their own plan. They get to create the things they want to work on. And our biggest, most exciting part for me is that we utilize the community. So listening to the Joey Meadows presentation, I was really excited because I'm from Bonner Springs, so I know exactly where you are. And their reputation does precede them. People in this work know them across the state. They do good jobs there. We're really excited because we started looking into this in 2018 too. And we built a program where a family could come in, set their own plan, work on their own things, work on their own objectives, and build a community. The number one thing, and the reason I invited Jeff here with me today is one, because I'm terrified of you, but two, because he's seen firsthand some of the things we do. No one escapes childhood unscathed. No one gets out of this life without a little bit of trauma. It doesn't matter how much money or who your parents are. We all have it. But our families that we're dealing with, the number one thing they say is that no one sees them, no one hears them, no one cares about them, and they have no voice or choice. And that kills me. One of the questions I ask people as they're about to join my program is, if you broke down, because we're in Lyon County, so I use Garden City as my example. If you broke down in the middle of western Kansas, in the middle of the night, who could you call that would come pick you up? You don't have to pay them. You can't pay them. Who's coming for you? And they say no one. Every single one of them says no one. I can, you can, right now, think of 5, 10, 15, 30 people who would be there to get you. My families can't. At Radical Life, we want to build community around our folks. We want to increase their support so they know that they are seen, they are heard, and they are valued. One way we do this is we invite Sheriff Cope. We invite Police Chief Ed Owens. We invite the medical community, teachers, board members, people in our community to come have dinner with them every Monday night. They visit with them, and Jeff's going to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like.
Okay. I just want to say that Lindsay does a fantastic job. She has some statistics I can get with her later. She doesn't go over them today, but just the impact that it's made on the families, the lack of resources being utilized by the state, and
Can you give us your name real quick again?
I'm sorry. It's
okay.
Jeff Cope, C-O-P-E, Lyon County Sheriff. Sorry. So anyway, I've been involved with the community nights for 3-4 years now, probably almost. So it's a really good opportunity. We meet with the leaders. That's what they call the people in the class. And I don't know who they are necessarily when I walk in. Some of them have been in my jail, some of them haven't. Sit down, we break bread together, we eat together, we talk, and then we go around and they talk about how their perceptions of the community are. And their perceptions of the community are way different than mine, and I will guarantee everybody in this room. And it helps, I think, us as leaders. We learn from their leaders. And it's just really a fantastic program. And if we could model that across the state, if we could get that in front of the families before they get into the foster care system, those are things that we need to look at there, because I see it on the backside, and these families really just need some help and they need some support. I talked to them about that. One of them is all excited she's got a job. It's the first time she's ever had a job with vacation pay. She's working at the city sanitation facility, so she's working for the city of Emporia, but she's never had that opportunity, and she's so excited. And I mean, it's just really a powerful, powerful program. So that's my 2 cents for it. So.
My favorite story about Jeff is when he came to dinner one night, and after we're done, my rule is if you eat, you help clean. Everyone helps clean up. It's a family setting, and we all work together. And so that night, I wring out a wash rag, and I tossed it across the room to Jeff, and I said, okay, mister, you need to wipe 3 tables before you're done. And the families were all like, and they loved it. And he wiped 3 tables, and they thought it was the coolest thing, right? Helping our families understand that they're just as valued as anyone else in our community matters. It impacts them. We do have some stats. We do have results of what our work is doing by putting community around people. We are able to pay off debt. What this looks like for my families across all of the groups that have graduated so far, over 32 people. $18,000, over $18,000 has been paid off in debt. That doesn't seem like that much to us, right? But this is payday loan debt. This is garnishments. This are court fines and fees that are debilitating to my families. They can't get out from under it. I don't give them any money. They'll say, my lights were shut off. Can you help me? And I say, no, I didn't use your electricity, but I'll be there. I'll bring my scented candle. We'll hang out. We'll figure out what you're going to sell so you can fix the problem yourself. They're fixing the problems themselves. All of these stats are not because of me. Our families have, You know what? I totally messed that up. We paid off over $70,000 in debt. The $18,000 is our increased income across all of our leaders. Over the last 6 months that they spend in my program, they increase their income by showing up to work more, is the number one way, by building their social circle, so when their babysitter bells, they have a backup plan to call, they don't have to miss work. Just putting things in place that build their community. We've had 73% of our people who are on parole or probation graduate early, up to a year early. And we've had 5 adults who are currently are getting their GEDs or high school diplomas, and 5 have already graduated. 1 has graduated college. We are excited to see what they do because we know it impacts the future. One thing that really bothered me as a teacher was the number of kids who were in that generational poverty, that generational special education, that generational foster care, generational incarceration. It's happening again and again and again. But if we can break those cycles, like Jeff said, if we can be proactive and get in there, we're seeing results so their children don't have to walk through the same things. The last thing I'm going to tell you about is our implementing partnership with Care Portal. I love Joey Meadows sharing about all the churches that impact their community, and I want to tell you quickly about ours. We are the first implementing partner with Care Portal in Kansas. We're not the first people to use Care Portal, but the implementing partnership is new. We work with them. They put agencies like DCF, the school district, Crosswinds, our mental health center, will put in a request, something that they need. And then it is sent out to the answering agencies, the churches who meet that need. We have been able to relieve over $70,000 in economic impact by having just churches meet the needs of people in our community. It gets a little hairy. We work with the school district, church and state, I know, right? But if you need a dresser to get your kid back in your home, and I have one in my garage, why wouldn't I bring it over? I'll wipe it down first and give it to you. You can have it, right? Like, why are we taking simple solutions and making them difficult? We don't need to. We have people in our community. Lyon County has a great community that wants to meet the needs of people. We just want to provide a platform for them to be able to do so. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Would you stand for some questions?
Oh, yes.
I got to talk on the phone, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, maybe, Lindsay? I don't remember, but it was a great conversation. And one of the things that stuck out to me was she created kind of is it a center or something? Where do you operate out of?
So we rent space from a church in Lyon County.
Okay. And it's like a safe space. And so I think you had therapists that come there to meet the families. If you could just share just a little bit about that. I thought that was great.
People ask me what I do. I don't really know how to explain it to them because one day I'll go get cats from a lady who has too many cats. Her landlord's really upset about it, right? And we catch cats and then we go take them to the humane shelter. Like, my job's bizarre. But then I go to an IEP meeting and then I go to the doctor's office with this family and then I go to court, right? I have outfit changes, I promise. But what happens is I really just say I set tables. I set tables for people. I would love to set a table for you guys. I would love for you to come any Monday night and eat with my family, ask them their story, ask them their experience with child welfare. My families could solve every single issue that you guys are looking at. They're not lazy. They are hardworking and they are amazing. Their problem-solving skills are phenomenal. But they're terrified, more terrified than me being here right now, right? And so what we do is we set tables. My conference room is open. We've had IEP meetings with the school district in my office instead of at the school because that's really hard for my parents. We've had police officers, parole officers, probation, wraparound meetings with employers. We've had therapists. We have a therapist on site who will come and meet with our families there because there is a huge stigma against actually reaching out and getting help, even when you know you need it. So we really set tables. We want to create a space where families feel like they can access the already great resources. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I don't have time. But they can access the resources and feel valued and feel like they matter.
Thank you. Any other questions, committee? Representative Humphreys?
Thank you. So when you say your family, I'm kind of missing the big picture maybe, or maybe you said it like your first sentence and I missed it, but you have families that kind of sign up with you and you walk them through whatever they're facing in their life, or I miss that sort of
I
big
probably
picture.
skipped it. We work with 15 families at a time.
Okay.
We're a 3-person operation, right? So I can't take on more than that. What that looks like is every Monday night, your family, all of your children, or if your children are in foster care, you don't have them with you yet, just you by yourself come. We have dinner all together. We sit and spend the evening with each other, eating. And then remember the special ed teacher in me. Everything has a purpose, right? So we're gonna learn family skills. We're gonna learn communication. We're gonna model things. Then our adults go to classes and our children go to childcare. We're lucky enough to have ESU in our community. And those scholarship winners for the athletics, they need community service hours. So you feed a college kid dinner, you'll be amazed at what you can get out of them. I love you college kids, you can come, I'll feed you. But then they teach my kids. The baseball team from ESU came and did a baseball clinic with my kids. They loved it. It was amazing, right? And then the adults go to classes. We work for about 6 months on those resources that I was talking about, navigating where I'm at in those resources right now and where I want to be. We tell them pie in the sky. Where could you be? We work with somebody in survival state. They can't see past tomorrow often. Definitely not 2 weeks away. But our families we're finding the longer we're with us, we can say, dream with me, what's your future house look like? And suddenly they have a white picket fence and a wraparound porch. Suddenly they own a photography business and they're making money and they don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. I'm 3 months in and I can say, okay, mama, what's your dream? Being married, having someone to help me, and being in a relationship where I don't get beat up. Being in a relationship where I don't get beat up. And it took 3 months to be able to calm enough to get there. Guys, we got to do something. That was a really long answer. I don't even know if I gave it to you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That was, just helped me understand. Yep, thanks.
Representative Barth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say, whatever you're doing, I don't understand all how it works, but I think that in general, what you are bringing is just a common sense approach as a parent and helping other people who maybe didn't have those skill sets brought forth to them. You sound like my mom, so thank you for what you're doing. And I think that's a good thing. I love my mom.
I like sounding like a mom. It's fine.
Representative Page.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, and thank the gentleman over there, because I think the one thing you both have is that you care, and people can see it. And it's one thing to say one thing, but it's another thing to actually do what you say you're trying to do. And my only question is, you said you want them to be self-sufficient. Do you help them get a job?
Absolutely. I don't help them get a job. We utilize our community resources that are already in place. Lyon County is so blessed. We have a Southeast Kansas Works in place. Those ladies come and they do whole facilitated nights where they help our families not just make a resume, not just practice interview skills, although that's my favorite night to watch. They also sit with them. They do the aptitude test with them. Like, let's not just work at Casey's to make enough money so we can barely scrape by. What are you good at? What are your giftings? How do we get you placed in somewhere where you're going to be successful long-term and enjoy it?
Okay, thank you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Representative Burkamp.
Thanks, Madam Chair. You mentioned everybody has to help clean up. Do you have any other ground rules for joining, or is it?
Right, so I do. I brought a pamphlet because I'm a teacher, so y'all got a handout, okay? I'm going to give it to you in a second. I didn't want you looking at it while I was talking, though. I wanted your eyes up here. So we do have some qualifying criteria. We recommend that everyone be clean and sober for at least 6 months, and here's why. Working on sobriety is hard. My program is hard. 2 hard things at once, or you're not super successful. But I'm also the boss of the place, so sometimes they're only 4 months clean. I'll reach out to their PO or their drug counselor or things like that. There's a form, it's HIPAA compliant. We make sure we have their permission. And we get a recommendation that, yeah, they're in, they can do this, right? So first one is clean and sober, 6 months, have to have a home. I'm not Joy Meadows. I wish I was. That place is awesome. But I can't help with homelessness. I don't have the budget. I don't have the space. I don't have the brain capacity to do that, right? So you have to have a home. You have to have kids. We have lots of people who are single individuals who would benefit from this program. But my grant funding and the funding that limits me in what I do says you have to have kids. And then the fourth one, I never remember. Like my worker's one of the students here. She works for me. Can't be a registered sex offender. We have kids in DCF custody in our building at all times. And so we have to follow their rules. And thank you for those rules.
And then just one last question. I know a lot of times if I set a goal, if I don't have an accountability partner, I don't reach it. So do you have something like that where you say you want to do this in the next 6 months? Do they have some person that kind of says,
Oh, yes.
And I assume that's probably you, but.
Yes, we do. We meet on Monday nights, everyone all together. It's not negotiable. You got to be there. But then during the week, around your work schedule or whatever you have going on, you meet with one of my staff, Sydney, myself, Lori, and we do a coaching session with you. And that's where we call it compassionate accountability. So they know that in those 11 areas, I'm not rocking all of them at all times, and I'm clear with that. And I let them know what my goal is. My goal right now is to go to water aerobics. I need my physical health built up a little bit. So they know that. They can call me out on it. If I don't go, they love calling me out on it. But at the same time, I can say, well, you were supposed to get 7 hours of your GED classes done, and you only got 2. What's up? Right? And we talk about it, and we challenge each other, and we push each other to grow. And in doing that, they're meeting their goals much faster.
Any other questions, committee? Representative Bowsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Lindsay, for being here. You said dinner night, Monday night, some of your parents, kids might be in foster care. Now, would those be parents that are working towards a reintegration plan, or would these be parents that were trying to adopt, or both? Do you help with case plans?
So we take the case plan that DCF has already given them. We have both. So we have families who kids are in foster care. We have families who have just gotten them back, and DCF wants to make sure that stability remains, so we're helping build that. We also have families who they've never lost their kids to DCF custody. Either way is fine. When they are in DCF custody, what we do is we work with the provider, St. Francis, KVC, TFI, and we look at that case plan. I remember one of my very first moms that came in, she was horrified. She was crying. She had this case plan with all these steps, and I said, give it to me. We made a copy of it. I gave her back her copy, and I just cut it up. And I said, here's all the steps you have to do. And I took 8 of them off the table, and I said, here's 4. Let's do that this month. There's 4 weeks, 4 steps. Let's do it. And she picked which one. Like, we don't have to reinvent their plan. The plans that they give are what we have to stick by. But that's another way we help our families meet their goals.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Long answers.
Good
Don't ask
job. That was great. You did a good job. So.
Thank you.
Thank
I am
you for
going to
being
leave this
here.
here because I do want you to check us out. And please, I'm not joking. This isn't lip service. Come see me. And when you do, I dare you not to fall in love. You'll be like, Jeff, I have to be like, don't come tonight, buddy. We're good. Like, come see me. Come see my families. They're worth your time. I promise.
And I love the fact that you're here, Sheriff. That is vitally important. We're hearing a lot of, information with police protective custody and all the good things. So
Yeah, I didn't come talk about that today, but no, Lindsay's family does a great job out there, and I know Representative Schreiber, he was there to the last community event we had. So
Good.
I'm sure most of you know him. So if you have questions about it, he can help you with that as well. So.
thank you.
Don't look at that brochure when the next group's going. Pay attention.
That's right. Of course. Okay, and last today is Safe Families for Children. So good to see you, Tammy.
Good to see you
So
as
introduce
well.
yourself and tell us about you,
You
and your
bet.
group. Yeah.
Let me get kind of set up here a little bit. All right, we have slides. Just let me know when we're good to go. He's pulling up my slide deck.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, here we are. Chairwoman Howerton, Vice Chair Johnson, and Ranking Minority Member Owsley, thank you, and thank you to the rest of the members here today. Some of you I know, some of you I've spoken with before, and some of you are brand new to me. So I take just a moment here and discuss who Safe Families is and what we do. Next slide. Our founder is Dave Anderson. We were founded in 2003 in Chicago, Illinois, and you can clearly read the quote on the slide from Dave about opening your hearts and your homes to a stranger. And that's exactly what we do in Safe Families. We are attempting to create an environment, create a world where children are safe and families together. And we usually are serving kids that are at the brink of foster care engagement. Our mission is to host and create extended-like family supports for vulnerable families through a community of devoted volunteers who are motivated to keep children safe and families intact. So how do we get our volunteers? We go into the local churches, make presentations, just see if in their ministry, do they have room for Safe Families on their shelf? And people stand up, raise their hand, and it's really a three-legged stool. You have host families, family friends, and resource friends. And all three of those legs are vitally important. Someone may say, oh gosh, I can't host a child in my home. But I can sure call someone and walk along life with them. I could buy somebody a pack and play if they needed that. And so that's where all three legs are very, very important. Next slide. I think it's important, too, to delineate the difference between Safe Families and foster care. You can see on the slide that it's more of a difference. It's not Safe Families versus DCF. And I wanted to thank Tanya Keys for working with us. We work with DCF quite a bit, and I wanted to thank her and her team for allowing us to work with them. But we serve people that are in the midst of a job loss, a hospitalization just came up out of the clear blue, loneliness and social isolation, and those are very common points of people where they are when we become engaged. Mental illness, incarceration, they're overwhelmed, they have addiction, domestic violence, crisis pregnancies, and homelessness. Those are the categories of families that we serve, which sounds very similar to what DCF serves. Our desire is to engage these families prior to DCF ever knowing their name, keeping them away from the challenges that can produce and sometimes the outcomes that are inevitable. Next slide, please. It's also our desire to get to yes. When we have an intake call, and I have an intake line that's answered by a live staff member 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and we're monitoring that because we may extend those hours because oddly enough, crisis happens beyond hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. But we want to be available for them. And so we are very intentional about when a call comes in from a parent, it's not from someone else, it's from the parent. That's what triggers our engagement. We want to get to yes. That parent may think, oh, I have a 14-year-old child that's having a lot of behaviors and she's uncontrollable, but who else is in the home? Well, I have 3 other kids in the home. And so maybe we don't have a volunteer family who can handle a 14-year-old with elevated behaviors, but we have a host family that can take those other 3 kids for a weekend or maybe a week, make sure they get to school, take them to a game, maybe go to their own kids' games, something like that, a bit of normalcy to life. Next slide, please. This is an example of jumping in and getting to yes. This woman here is one of our staff. She started out, was there a slide before that showing a couple of women? Nope, that's the other way. There we are. This is a special story right here. This young woman on the right, this was a referral from Shawnee Mission Healthcare Center, and she had had a baby that was drug exposed during pregnancy. And this mom has also lost 3 children to the system already. We got a call from the social worker at the hospital and wanting to know if Safe Families would be an option that we could care for this baby while mom was getting some much needed help. And so the lady on the left, she's a young girl and is a children's pastor in Lawrence, Kansas, and she wanted to be a volunteer. So she raised her hand when the call went out and said, I'll do that. And so she came to the hospital, picked up the baby. Mom, through the period of 9 months, which is an extremely long engagement time for us, ours is usually 6 weeks or so, Mom was on the wagon, off the wagon. We did have DCF support in having her checked on, held accountable for all of those required steps. But there came a time after about the 7th month that I was like, man, this mom just isn't progressing. She's not following what she needs to follow to keep this child. All the while, that child is with a girl named Alyssa. But finally, we were in a meeting with DCF on a call, and we were talking about this mom and her child, Jackson. And I said, you guys, she's just not progressing. I don't know how much longer we can go on utilizing a volunteer in this capacity. And a very passionate DCF social worker, let me tell you, each and every one of you social work students are vitally important. And I want you to hear this. That passionate social worker said, I think she can do it. I know she can do it. She was tearful. She wanted this mom to have that chance the very last minute. And lo and behold, by the time the 9th month rolled around, she was taking that child back in. And Alyssa was her family friend. She would check on her. She would make sure she was looking for jobs. She would take her to the job interview. She would help her find jobs to interview for. But the mom took the initiative to ensure that wherever her job was, there was a child care center close by. And so she was taking on that role. She wanted to keep one of her children. And I'm happy to say that today we're 3 years later from that case, and that volunteer, who's now an employee, is walking still alongside, walking through life with Melissa. And Melissa is safe. Melissa is providing for her child. They live in an apartment that she's paying for, and the child care center is walking distance from where she works and where they live. So, I mean, that's a mom turning into the mom. She was at the threshold of foster care, and she had been there 3 other times. Next slide, please. This is that same volunteer, now staff member for us. We had a mom call in. We were hosting her 2-year-old child, and she was expecting another child and had someone set up ready to meet her and kind of walk through a C-section delivery with her, and it was a friend of hers. And it came delivery day. We're hosting babies. That child is great, but mom calls in a frantic because her friend who was supposed to be at the C-section with her didn't show. It was a friend that was a no-show, and that happens quite a bit. Alyssa, being who she is, jumped in the car. I'm on it, Tammy. I'll go over there. And so that is a picture of Alyssa spending that special, special day with that mom welcoming her second child into the world. And we had a really neat quote from the KU labor and delivery nurse on that particular day. That's a special slide. Next slide. This is a story out of the Wichita region. And this family, the girl on the left with the pink t-shirt on, she's a 20-year-old mom. She has 3 children. She's holding one. The host mom is holding one, and then there's a little girl standing, and that's one of her children. But she was having a very difficult time. She was a single mom. She just needed time and space to secure housing, seek mental health services, obtain state IDs, get regulated on her mental health meds. And we hosted her children, all 3 kids, for 22 nights, allowing her to be completely focused on herself and her needs so that she could begin meeting the needs of her kids. The other 2 ladies on the right-hand side of that screen are from DECA, and that was a referral to us from DECA. They helped us support mom back to Wichita because she was being hosted in Emporia, and that's where that meeting place is. But at the end of that time, before they left, our chapter director in Kansas City gave that young mom a big hug and said, I just want you to know I'm so proud of you. You've come through a lot. You've done a lot. You're going to do this. We're still walking alongside that mom with a family friend in Wichita. And it was that day that the mother, the girl in the pink t-shirt, said, and for the very first time, I'm proud of myself too. She had never said it before. She said, I was never proud of myself. Those are touching stories. Those are real stories that are happening right now. Next slide, please. This is a story out of, let's see, Kansas City. This is a mom that was incarcerated, and she had a older child, a boy, and his name was Wyatt, and she was expecting, and so the delivery day was going to come, and we were hosting Wyatt while she was incarcerated, but she was going to deliver this baby prior to her time being met. And we worked with her, and we worked with the hospital staff in Kansas City to ensure, mom wanted to breastfeed her baby. Well, after she delivered, she was taken back into confinement, but the jail allowed her to pump breast milk. My staff, our volunteers were running to the jail every day to get breast milk to take to the volunteer that's caring for the child to feed the baby with. And that went on until mom was discharged from jail, did her time, and reunited back with her child. That was 52 nights until that child was back in a home with mom. Safe Families the entire time was visiting. When the baby was in the hospital, prior to leaving the hospital, Safe Family staff, volunteers were going to the hospital to hold that baby and just feel that human touch, so that wasn't anything he was going to incur with his mom being incarcerated. We were able to secure a safe place for her and her baby in traditional housing. Following mom's release from confinement, mom and baby and son are now moved to independent living, and they're doing well. The host family is continuing to walk alongside that mom, holding her accountable, sometimes just providing provisions, and she's certainly providing a relationship with her interest. One more story that I want to share, and that's number 5. Next slide. This is a neat one out of Southeast Kansas. The girl on the right is the daughter of one of our employees who is also hosting the 4 kids that I'm getting ready to talk about. But the 2 kids on the left are kids that are being hosted within that home. And it's really a neat story. This mom, 4 kids, she's pregnant with her 5th, and she has an early delivery. Can't plan for that one. And so we got word from her, quickly had a host home prepared themselves to receive the 4 kids. These kids had no one. I mean, every single one of these cases, there was nobody. So foster care would have been the next step. And we had a host family take in the 4 kids. Another volunteer went with mom to the hospital. She needed to stay in the hospital for a while. Baby had to go to Kansas City. So you'd got a mom down in Southeast, you got baby up in Kansas City, you got 4 kids in Southeast as well. And so what they did, when mom was able to go to Kansas City, we were able to pack mom and the 4 kids together, get to the Ronald McDonald House in Kansas City, and every single week we had, I think it was 3 days a week, we had kids. The 4 kids were being taken care of by a host family and family friends, while mom would leave the Ronald McDonald House and go over and hold her newborn who was needing that mother touch and just learning how to care for a baby that had been born so prematurely. And those are the relational pieces. We're not just a transaction. None of these are transactional events. These are relationships, and as human beings, we need those, and that's what we do. Next slide, please. This is a neat one. The guy holding the baby, this young boy holding the baby and holding the bottle, that's the child of a host family. The young boy to the left is his friend. But we can't forget what a message this sends to kids that are kids of the host families, of serving, generosity, hospitality, compassion, because these kids learn these stories. And these are lifelong events that will impact them. This is what my parents did. I was raised in a church. Not one time did I ever hear about an adoptive kid. Didn't know. But that's where we belong. We belong. We need to take care of our community. If we can't step up and do that, I don't know what we're doing, but serving ourselves. But that is an excellent example of what it means to volunteer, and these parents that are volunteering are allowing their kids to be transformed as well into that type of work. Next slide, please. It's from a ripple to a movement. One family, one drop of water starts a ripple. Then you have another one, and another one, and then you've got a movement. Safe Families Kansas is in the process of a movement. We're in Kansas City, we're in the Southeast Kansas region, we're in the Wichita region. Next month, April 1st, we're starting in I'm calling it the Central North region. And I have someone prepared to step into that who will build a team to serve all the way up to Belleville, over to Ellis County, down to McPherson. We are in McPherson, but really establish a presence there, and up to Manhattan. And for Topeka, we're bringing Kansas City over to Topeka. But it's a way that we're growing. We're moving in that direction. No place in Kansas is exempt from the need for safe families, that's for sure. We're not one and done. I want to brag on Safe Families Southeast just a moment longer. They're out of the box. Those guys down there, that team down there, they've worked with the Sheriff's Department. They are now submitting referrals to us for incarcerated parents so somebody can just go in with them, be a family friend. We just had one was going to court, and it was his court hearing. You're either guilty or you're not guilty, and he was not guilty. And just the joy that they had to share with the people that they had been walking alongside. So many of them don't have anyone. But he walked into that courtroom, and there was 2 staff members and family friends standing there to greet him, not knowing what the outcome would be. If we can stop one child from going into foster care, and we can raise them in their home with their folks, and nobody's family is like mine. I'm sure their house doesn't look like mine, it doesn't smell like mine, but it's home, and they want to be home. And if we can safely do that, that's what we're about. We host kids because sometimes parents need that self-focus, but we want these kids to be back home if at all possible. And that's the kind of work we do. I'd entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions, committee? Representative Burkamp.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the presentation. How many host families do you have?
In the state of Kansas, 60.
60, okay.
Yep.
And then do most sign up to do it again? Do you have a pretty good retention rate?
Well, they stay with us. You know, we've got about an 85% retention rate in our host families, which is important. But you also can wear some people out. So sometimes they'll go on hold. Maybe they just want to be a resource friend for about 6 months. You know, that's a tremendous help. You know, but the people we have are truly gifts, and they are motivated to do the work that they're doing. And they don't get paid. We're not giving them a stipend for food or anything else. We do have diaper drives. So if you've got a family, they've got 4 kids of their own, and they're hosting 2, and one's in diapers. Until I had grandkids, I never knew what diapers cost this day and age, but man, it's healthy, you know? So, you know, it's important to have those things. It's important to have a stroller. Our requirements for a host family are different than DCF because this is very temporary. It may be one night, it may be a weekend, it may be a week, it could be 30 days while someone's in recovery of something. It could be several months, like Melissa was, where we kept trying and trying. But they go through background checks. Their homes have walkthroughs done. My staff are in their homes every week for the first month, and then if things are going well, every other week. But we are always 24 hours a day available to our host families.
Thank you.
Any other questions, committee? Representative Pickert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is more a comment. I want to thank all of you that came and presented. It's a breath of fresh air. We hear about problems all day long. And, you know, to just know that there are people like you out there, I want to encourage you and thank you. And I was just sitting here thinking you probably will have no idea the impact of what you do has made on people till you get to heaven, you know? So just keep up the good work. Thank you.
I just wish, and this is something I wanted to include, and I overlooked it, you know, down in some areas, people, they focus on their region, which is great. And I have a guy that works on our team. He's a full-time minister, and he was a foster kid. He was also raised by people in churches because his mom would get to a good church. Every time they moved, he goes, it was amazing. My mom always found a good church. He said, and those people were doing safe families without safe families, you know? And that's what we're supposed to do. We're kind of in a society of, oh, we'll text it, we'll do this, we'll do that, out of sight, out of mind. And this is getting back involved in your community. And if we can have a church, a sheriff's department, a school, say, you know what, we're going to make it a priority in our community not to have one of our kids go to foster care. We're going to make that commitment to our community. It's a drop that starts a ripple, that starts a movement. And we can do that in Kansas. We just have to, have the volunteers, we have to have the support. And that's what we're getting from our legislature and as well as DCF. I can't say that enough. They do very hard work. There's no question. I respect it a lot. But we can make Kansas better than it is. There's a lot of kids in custody and in care that if we just had a safe families, or that mom knew about safe families, or that dad or that social worker knew about safe families, maybe it would have been a different outcome.
Any other questions? Representative Page.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't have a question. Again, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're welcome.
That's what's going to make the world difference. It's not enough to say it, but you have to do it. Walk the talk.
That's exactly right.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay.
These guys, our staff, I had one lady rushing to a hospital to get a POA signed so that we could keep her kids overnight because she was very, very sick on dialysis and all of this, so that their kids didn't go into care. We had an approval for a day hosting, but we didn't have this nighttime that was all of a sudden. 10:30 at night, she's a single girl, same girl that's just a warrior, going over to Providence Health Center to get this POA signed. It's unbelievable.
Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you mentioned that your hosts aren't paid, but your staff is paid, and I'm just curious of your funding stream.
Our funding stream is through the legislature, SGF funds, and then occasionally we have people that want to support us financially. But usually the people that support those resources go to families that need something. They're in need of items.
And then, Madam Chair, you said the intent is always to get the child back home.
Yes.
Can you give us an example of what happens when that child's not able to go back home? How do you perform your services?
Typically it's a referral from DCF, the ones that we've had that did not get to go back home, or they were being either brought out of home into DCF or they were coming to us for a period of time. But it's typically, and I cannot think of one right off the top of my head that was a case other than a DCF referral, and they were using us as maybe you can get it going, maybe you can turn that page. And there are some parents that just do not progress. You can keep them in a home for 3 or 4 months, rent-free. The one particular case I'm thinking of, we had our staff member was going to the house to pick up the kids to take them to school, of which sometimes they would leave school and come back home, and mom was fine with that because she never got out of bed. Or the staff member would say, okay, tomorrow you are going to the school with me to take your kids. And she would arrive and the kids would come out, but no mom. They would go in and say, you've got to take your kids to school. You've got to come along. And she just wouldn't do it. And so she took the kids to school, came back, mom wouldn't answer the door. So those are things that are just beyond, I think, anyone in this room could do.
So then, in that situation where the child's not able to return home, would it then go on to become a SYNC?
Yes.
Okay.
It would go back to DCF, and they would take them into custody.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This is just like the prevention piece. Like
This is prevention.
prevent, but
We're trying everything.
where we can't, then it goes into the petition in the court. And
We have had dads that go into drug rehab, and we've kept their boys. This was a Wichita case, 2 boys, and that dad loved his boys. It was the most tearful, sad thing, but it was the launch of a great thing. And the father in the host home was talking with the dad, supporting the dad, mentoring the dad, to encourage him. This is worth it. Keep going. And so when he got out, the picture that I saw of that dad and those kids, oh my goodness, there wouldn't be a dry eye, and I'm not really a crier much, but it was something else. And that host dad said, you call me anytime. He didn't, and we're not going to bug you. We're not going to chase you down and tackle you and say, yeah, we're going to mentor you. But if you want that, we're here. And this is my number. You call me anytime. And when you say that, it can happen, and it does happen.
Good. Any final questions or comments from the committee? Thank you very much, Tammy, for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
We do have one more committee that'll be on Monday. We're going to bring, hopefully, Mr. Klump will be back just to finish that conversation that we sort of started in a couple of committees ago. But I did want to end kind of on a good note and for you to hear some success stories and that there are very positive things because sometimes we get bogged down by the issues and the legislations and all the definition of words that I put you through this session. But it is good. And I knew about two of the groups. I didn't know about Joy Meadows, but I think it was a great kind of conglomeration of what's going on across the state. So that is good. Any other final thoughts? If not, we'll be back here Monday at 1:30 for our final committee of this session, which is crazy. Oh, and I heard there's going to be cookies here, so, and I'm not baking, so on Monday. With that, we're adjourned.